States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Matt and Barbara. Appreciate that. Before we get going, just so you know, we have the closed session that we have to be into at 1 o'clock. Is that correct, John?
One, and they processed their vehicle as an off-road vehicle, and it should have been street legal registration.
Okay, so,
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion that we go ahead and approve the tax refund for $18 in Tax District 1 for it was off-road
Off-road.
vehicle as presented.
Okay. Have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other tax matters? Business licenses? None? Yeah, sweet. Next item would be discussion and decision for the Roosevelt City Sports Complex facility. We had that mentioned last week.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and Uintah County Commission. Appreciate you putting us back on the agenda. At least you didn't run us out of town last time, so that's a good sign.
Please state your name for the records.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my name is J.R. Bird. I'm Roosevelt City Mayor. I have Rhonda Goodrich here, who is our Finance Director. Do you have the information that we left with you last time? We do have another copy if you need.
Yeah, why don't you give it to,
Yeah.
I didn't bring it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, how are you doing?
So for the public that wasn't here last week, this is a sports complex that Roosevelt City is doing. We were impacted with the library. It took 2 of our baseball, softball fields, and so we're building new baseball and softball fields to replace those. We also have some soccer fields that we're adding to that, and we're adding a pickleball court to that as well. Being in Roosevelt City and being right on the west side of Uintah County and on the east side of Duchesne County, we're in a very unique spot. So we've done some research, as we mentioned last time, that our facilities are utilized about proportionately 40% Roosevelt City, 60% surrounding areas. And so this complex is a $3.5 million complex. We've gone to CIB. We had asked for a 50-50 split on this. We were told a 92-8, so 92 grant, or excuse me, loan and 8% grant. We were also asked to go back to the counties that were utilizing this and to visit with them and see if there was any kind of assistance that we could get. And so as a commitment to them, we decided to come here and also Duchesne County to present what we're doing and to see if there's any way we could work with the counties and get some assistance with that project. When we were here last week, we were, well, it was suggested that we go to Ballard City, and so I'm on Ballard City Council meeting tomorrow as well. So we're doing everything we can to push this forward. And to give you an idea of how utilized these facilities are, we have over 1,000 kids that sign up every year for baseball and softball. That's not including the adult leagues that we have. We have 600 plus kids sign up for soccer, and we've been turning kids away. We had 100 to 200 kids from soccer that we had to turn away this year, and several that we had to turn away from softball, baseball. So pickleball, I don't know if you know, we have a lot of Ballard residents playing pickleball with us as well. And it's been a good time. It's been a great to have those people there, but obviously we need facilities to do that. This is not something that we're building hoping that people will come if we build. We've got too many people and not enough room, so. Any questions from the commission?
No, it's a unique situation, how Uintah County and Roosevelt work together. I mean, we do on the fire, you know, we contract our fire for Ballard
Yeah,
and that side through Roosevelt. And you know, we look at it, I look at it with the, the Basin Medical just opened up the gym
yep,
there in the old Shopco to help Uintah County's residents that live on that side, but yet.
sure.
So I understand the situation. I'm trying to decide what the best avenue is. I thought CIB would do better than that for you.
I did too. And I think if we can get a little help from the counties and support, even if it's not a large sum, but it shows support, I think we can go back to CIB and get a more favorable funding package. So that's part of what we're trying to do as well. One of the things that's interesting too is we had a softball tournament. We had 36 teams sign up, and we had a lot of people camping in the parking lot, but I can tell you every hotel in Ballard was full. And so it's interesting, they get, you know, our facilities bring people. We don't necessarily have hotels, so those surrounding areas actually get the benefit of the TRT tax and things like that. And that's part of the reason we'll go to Ballard tomorrow.
We got how many rooms in Ballard, in Uintah County? Quite a few.
I don't know offhand, and probably not a breakdown really on, other than what you had, 60% with some surrounding areas, or whatever it's.
Right. We should have done a little better job of distinguishing who's where. We have purchased or bought into a software or a company that has a software that will tell us exactly where, it's kind of a big brother software that'll tell us exactly where people are coming from. But it's by cell phone. So it'll track that, which is not my favorite.
Yeah, talk to Alicia on that. We tried that same software and
Didn't work.
it's kind of a waste of money.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Yeah, talk to Alicia, see if it's the same one that we used. It wasn't
Okay,
as good information as we'd hoped.
gotcha. Well, and maybe as you know, the alternative is just keeping track and asking people where they're from and things like that. That's a little more difficult, but it is a good point.
I had just conversations. We just, what was it, PILT we just received and we turned over to the rec district, and I don't know whether we could use it, you know, approach them about maybe using a little bit of that money to, you know, that, for it maybe, or I understand the needs, and I see that, you know, that it's pretty easy to understand where the people are coming from, just looking at the whole picture and stuff like that. I feel like we probably have an obligation somewhat, but to what extent, but then where do we get the money? But that's just, rather we do that, and I'd like to dig into it a little more, and I don't know if that's an option to maybe asking the rec district if they would, SSD1, if they would, where we got that PILT money, maybe look at that. That's just conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We have the same issue on roads that the oil companies are using out there that they're right down the center line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, usually those are the ones that the CIB really helps us out on, and this one is one that. Any comments?
I'm a little concerned about the rec district because it would be outside of our county. So
Yeah.
that concerns me a little bit. There's no doubt it's a good project. I do like that. Now, I think last week we talked a little bit. Whole project is
3.5 million,
3.5 million, and so 92% of that is loan.
correct.
And so that's a lot of, it's 2.75, $2.8 million that you have to come up with.
Sure.
And so you're asking the county, Ballard, or all of you, what kind of money are you looking at trying to get other than all you can get?
That's a really good question, and in all honesty, we'd like to get as much as we can. However, and I don't want to set a number to it because, you know, obviously, if we could get it a little more, that would help out, because we never know what we're going to get when we go back to CIB. But I was thinking 50 to 100,000 is all, would show at least good faith to CIB that, you know, we were doing our due diligence, and to us, you know, every little bit helps. But if we go back to them and let them know that Uintah County is participating X amount, if we could get another 8 to 10% on the grant side, that 50 to 100,000 then turns into 500,000, and that, which would help us out quite a bit, just because of the perception that is seen there. We know it's something that we have to do. We're going to have to bite the bullet on it one way or the other. So.
Any luck getting into the tribe?
You know, we have, so tomorrow at our council meeting, what we've decided to do there, and we would offer the same thing to Uintah County, but we haven't finalized anything yet. So I'm really trying to get a few of these things tied up so we can go to the tribe. But how we're going to approach the tribe is to give them advertising. So we're going to let them name a field for a certain, and we'll discuss tomorrow what a certain amount of donation is. And I think that's a good way to get them involved, to where they feel like they're a part of that complex. They have their name on the complex. And so that's what we're going to present to the tribe.
Oh, it's a Uintah Ute field.
Yeah, well, we can combine it. But you're absolutely, we're okay with that. We're not, believe me, there are no, you know, I know there's been history between Roosevelt and Vernal and all of that, and we don't mind having a Ute. Yeah, rivalry. As long as we keep winning football, we're fine.
Oh, boy.
That was rude.
I'm just kidding.
Well, no argument there.
But yeah, that's our approach to the tribe, is to see if we can, and I think it'd be a good project for us and the tribe to work on together and see if we can't strengthen relationships there. So, and we'll know tomorrow. So as soon as tomorrow's over, then it'll be the tribe next. And I've already got, got a hold of Devin Pearson with the tribe, and he said once we have something solid, to let him know, and he would get it before the business committee. So,
You know, there's the Duchesne County and Uintah County and the tribe have a revitalization program.
mm-hmm.
And as far as approaching Uintah or Duchesne County and the tribe, that would, you know, might be an avenue we look at to where say, hey, we're all three on this board, and with this money that, you know, we could maybe look at a little, you know, that might help encourage the tribe to participate if they, you know, that way too, to, you know, look at it as a project through there. But anyway, that's just thoughts. I think we're gonna need more discussion, Mr. Chairman, and more time to kind of dig into this a little bit and get a feel for it. And
I like that idea, though, on the revitalization with all three.
three of them went, and you know what I'm saying, I'd look and say that we would, you know, maybe we mentioned that, and that would they be interested in participating through revitalization with all, we each have our own pot of money.
Yeah.
And, but it's an avenue for them that would be easier for them to, or with all of us to maybe, you know, a little bit of money to come up and might encourage the tribe to, and Duchesne County too, to have an avenue.
That's a good point, and I
We
know
can do
Duchesne.
Brick and mortar, with that's all we can do with the money, which that's disqualifies, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think Duchesne, that was their plan, is looking at the revitalization funds and seeing
Why don't we
if
reach
they could
out,
utilize that.
see where we're at?
Okay.
Do you have a time on
Yeah,
this,
so-
a clock running.
Yeah, but it is, and it's, we're bumping up against it. So we've, October 6th is when we go back to CIB.
October 6th.
Yeah, and that's when they make the final decision. So this was the preliminary offer that they gave, and we're working our tails off in between now and then to try to do what they've asked us to do and do what we can. So when we go back, we don't go back and say, well, we didn't do anything. We've been
Oh.
hitting the pavement pretty
They
hard.
can also present, if they want to look at the minutes where they presented and you tried, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes CIB wants to do that.
Yeah,
Well, just for the information, the 26th will be our meeting, and then we won't have a meeting on the 3rd or the 10th.
okay.
There's 2 commissioners are going to be gone. Well, actually, all 3 are going to be gone on the 3rd.
Hope it's somewhere fun.
And then the 10th is the holiday, so we would need it.
Our next meeting.
How fast can you talk to revitalization? Could you
Oh,
reach out?
I think that, I don't think there's a problem with us for this type of project. I don't know, well, I don't think there's a problem going across the county lines with that revitalization money.
No.
You know, like that. I feel like that there is some of, there is some, I don't like to say obligation, but I'm thinking, there is some of our citizens definitely, well, we know there is, and, using their facilities and stuff like that, and it's, we use a little of that revitalization. I'm not sure when our next revitalization, which we got a few months if it does, but that we could there. And what is, do you mind me asking, what is Duchesne County?
We've asked them for 2.5 times what we've asked here, basically.
Two and a
Because-
half times?
Yeah, because, well, and if you're talking 50,000, that's not a whole lot, right? But because we understand that proportionately, it's probably about that 2 to 2.5 times. So because we cover the Cove, we cover Neola. Goodness, I was talking to people from Mountain Home, a gentleman that I know really well, and he said that 4 of his grandkids plays in Roosevelt, from Mountain Home. And so, I mean, it's a pretty large area that we cover, and just knowing the population on the Uintah County side, there's just not the population there to, right, there's probably 800 to 1,000 people, or maybe a few more there.
Okay. Well, just for, I'm going to put it up for a motion, see if anybody wants to make a motion.
So Mr. Chair, one thing, we would still have to go through all the other steps. So this would just be kind of a preliminary
Right.
authorization right now. Then we have to go through all the budget stuff as well. But just so
Yep. I
it's understood
understand that.
what kind of motion would be sought right
Yep.
now.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion that we go ahead and move forward with this, proceeding in the steps, with, an intent to lightly say that we'd like to come through and support this project. I'm not quite sure how to word that, with the intent, the positive intent of seeing the need and John, what do we, if we run into a roadblock or hiccup or whatever.
I think the first would be state how much you're thinking you're wanting to contribute, and then ask staff and offices to help put that together, then present in a future meeting. But I think we need to at least get an amount that somebody's thinking about, and then have a discussion on that amount.
I'd make the motion that we look into the staff funding, the direction we're going to go in the tune of $50,000 for the Roosevelt City Complex at this time.
Would that be out of, just for clarification, would that be revitalization funds?
That's what I'm thinking would be the best, would be out of revitalization. We need to, of course, within saying that, we've got to look and see where we're at and what's on the line there, but
Okay.
it's,
So I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second. I do have comment.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I was just going to ask Mayor Byrd, do you have to have the money in hand, or is a letter good enough to move the needle?
Sure. A letter of commitment would be enough to move the needle, yes. So if we had just a statement or a letter from the county commission saying, if you were to determine that that was a possibility,
Okay.
the letter would be fine.
What was that?
Okay. Any further discussion? John? You guys? I don't have any either, so I'm all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passed.
All right.
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Appreciate your time today.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we'll consider the Ute, what did you call it? The Uintah Ute field?
You in a Ute field?
No, that was the no-brainer, plus we get to win next year's football game.
Okay, so we have a need for a public hearing today for a budget amendment increase for 2022. Mark, if you would like to introduce that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Caldwell, Uintah County Budget Officer. I have for your consideration today a budget amendment. I'll just run through it so the public knows what we're proposing here. So as a little bit of background, we received the final rule for the ARPA money, and things changed a little bit on that final rule. They made some adjustments and made it easier for entities to use money, the money that was granted. And in the final rule, there's four uses of the money. And one of them is to replace lost public sector revenue. And in the final rule, they said you didn't have to show that you lost any money, any revenue, up to $10 million. You could just, they would just assume that everybody lost that amount. Now, if you lost more than that, you'd have to go through a step and prove what you lost, and you could use up to that amount based on your grant. Our grant was about $6.9 million. So the county filed the paperwork, and they selected to the replacing lost revenue and public sector revenue for ARPA. Now, that money can be used for governmental services. So our ARPA money can be used for governmental services. So that's what the ARPA money is going to be used for. So what that's done is it's provided, we've got money in our fund balance in the general fund because we're not having to use it for governmental services because that's what the ARPA money will be used for. And so this budget amendment budgets some of that money that we now have in the fund balance. And I'll run through that. So in the general miscellaneous, in the general fund, in the general miscellaneous department, there's a contribution for $2 million that would go to the downtown revitalization. There's $50,000 for roads department for fuel. Buckskin Hills would receive a capital projects allocation of $475,000. Pass-through grants, motel and transportation vouchers for $85,000. Economic development, $50,000 for Phenomicon. There'd be a transfer to Western Park for $4 million. Those would be all the expenditures. Then on the revenue side, the money would be coming from revitalization funds for $85,000, Phenomicon for $50,000, and that just brings us up to what Phenomicon actually brought in. So they actually brought in this amount of money, and then the fund balance for $6,525,000. Moving on to the municipal services fund. For the sheriff's department, we would budget for outreach programs $12,500. and that revenue would come from the outreach programs. In the Western Park, we would budget capital projects from $4 million and general fund contribution, the $4 million coming from the general fund. So that's the entirety of the proposed resolution.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So with that, we'll open the public hearing for public comment at this time.
Commissioners, Mike Wilkins, Uintah County Clerk Auditor. Just looking at this, there's two things I'd want to ask Mark since he's had the ARPA fund grant thing there. I believe if you read through that you cannot do replacement of revenue if you've reduced property taxes, which Uintah County did this year. Also, you can't use it to pay off debt. This really makes it really foggy. I can see what you're trying to do, but I don't know that it'll pass the smell test. When you get tracking the money through, when in this check run that we processed this week, there's 7.1 million going to pay off debt. So my suggestion is don't do this in this year, the same year you reduce property taxes and you're attempting to pay off debt. It's not, I think you're going to raise flags with the federal audit, when the single audit on that one. You're really going to raise some flags by doing that. This money doesn't have to be spent till what, 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. That maybe putting this off a year would be better than trying to put it in the same year that you reduced the property taxes and paying off debt. That's my comments on that.
So good points. If you read in the final rule for ARPA, the tax reduction does not apply to counties. It only applies to states and territories. So we looked into that and researched that.
Okay.
The money for the debt to pay the debt was already budgeted. This is new money, and this isn't ARPA money that we're talking about.
Yeah,
ARPA money
yes.
is going to be used for governmental services. That's all it can be used for under the rule.
Those are my comments, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thanks.
Tammy Meekum, Concerned Citizens. So I too looked up ARPA because on the August 29th meeting, you did tons of requests for proposals for Buckskin Hills, and I'd actually like to read some of them. They're request for proposal for a water line and power line at Buckskin Hills, request for a proposal for an asphalt seal coat for the drag strip at Buckskin Hills, and a request for an RV park and a campground A at Buckskin Hills, a request for a proposal for a pump station at Buckskin Hills. And when Pam Clinch came up to the mic and said, where is all this funding going to come from? Where is this money going to come from? Commissioner Haslam said one word, ARPA. ARPA. So I looked up ARPA, and I'd like to read some of the things that ARPA stimulates and recommends. And it's actually a third round of COVID pandemic stimulus money to government entities. And so it concerns me that you're going to spend a lot of money at Buckskin Hills when there are people that lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their businesses. And I'm actually going to read some of the things that I looked up on ARPA. It says that it is to strengthen vital public service and help retain jobs. It is also intended to support economic stabilization for households who have lost their jobs and their businesses, their homes. It is intended to increase assistance for affordable housing, food, rent, utilities, and revenue replacement for government services. It can also be used for water, sewer, broadband, and aging infrastructure. It can be used to address public health, mitigation efforts, medical expenses, health care, and anything that has been caused by the impact of the pandemic. So I'm concerned, and I want all the public citizens of Uintah County to know where you're again going to spend the third round of stimulus pandemic money instead of where they're recommending.
Sonia Norton. I just have one question, I think. Did you already state what that $4 million to Western Park was for? Is that for the hockey rink and amphitheater, or is that something different?
That's what it's for.
Oh, okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do you have a comment?
No, just if you had questions.
Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do you have, as a commission, do you have any comments to the comments that was brought up during the public hearing? Or do you?
One comment. There were four items that ARPA could be used for, and the county made an election, and it was several months ago, that they were going to use it for the lost revenue, and so that election was sent into the Treasury Department, and it's done. And given that, the only thing the county can use those funds for is for governmental services. And so all the other items, they were things that ARPA could be used for, but once the county made the determination we were going to use it for lost revenue, which gave you the most latitude in the ability to use the funds, that's the one we're under. And those broadband and all those other items, they're not available to us.
Yeah, just to maybe clarify something, when we first started talking about this and we first got the first allotment of money, that's when we sent the list of projects in on the ARPA. We listed out these projects that Tammy and everybody is talking about. And Pam, at the time, that's what I was under the impression that the money was going for, because that's what we had sent into the federal government at the time. With this last reading and the last money, we've changed that, and it's going in just into the general fund for government services, correct?
It has to be spent for government services because we've made that election to use it as to replace lost revenue. And things did evolve because the final rule, when it came out, it changed it. And before the final rule, you had to prove if you lost revenue, and it was quite a process. And a lot of the comments they got back during the comment period was that this is just too onerous to prove, to go through the steps. And so they said, okay, we'll set $10 million. Anybody that wants to claim up to their award up to $10 million for the lost revenue, you don't have to put any work into proving it. And so at that point, it became the most attractive option for the county.
Okay. You guys have any other?
Mr. Chair, if I can just state also, so the overview that's provided by the U.S. Department of Treasury, although it's not the rule, it's a little more plain language than what the rule actually has, so it's a good document to look at. The grants department, Jenny and I met on this, and then we had a follow-up meeting with you, Commissioner Haslam, and Mark, to talk about what the money couldn't be spent on. The rule specifically says there's certain things, and one of those, well, a number of those are like construction of a new correctional facility. You can't spend it on that. Construction of new congregate facilities to decrease spread of COVID-19 in the facility, construction of convention centers, stadiums, or other large capital projects. So when Jenny and I were looking at that list, and glad that Jenny was bringing that up and following it very closely, when we looked at the stuff that was being proposed out at Buckskin Hills, that's where, the flags came up. We said, hey, wait a second. that seems you're getting, it's not really convention center, it's not a stadium, but we may want to stay a little farther away from that. Because somebody might want to just cram that into that definition. So that was our opinion was let's not do that. If there are other funds available, or I'll just say monies, if there's other monies available that can be used that we already have, or, you know, if, and then later on down in the overview, it talks about where you can't use it to then replace your rainy day fund. And make sure that you're not doing that. Now, of course, money is money when it sits. If somebody wants to draw a line from point A to point B, they may be able to make that connection. But if our record is clear of where the money is coming from for those other projects, and where this money is coming into the county and where it's being put into those general services, which even includes payroll, right? I mean, you can decide from here to the end of the year, we're just gonna pay payroll out of ARPA funds. That's actually specifically addressed in the rule, and we could do that. So yes, there are things that we need to watch for, that Mike has brought up. And if it does look like maybe two dots may be connected, and we are not intending those dots to be connected, to make sure the history is very clear of where the money is coming from to pay for those other projects, that it's already there, it's already identified, and this money then is going into general government services. And that way, if anybody does look, we're able to show, look, this is the warrant list that was used on those funds. And so we can always document what we spent the money on.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah. I just lost part of it, though. I think John kind of answered the question, is when the projects was sent in. 'Cause I don't remember that going through a public meeting, and he kind of answered, you know, that's.
There was a report that came out, right?
Yeah,
at
I knew
front.
there was reports that
And-
had to be filed.
And they didn't have some restrictions, and so,
Right.
together with the grants department, we put a list together and sent it in, and that's what when Pam got up and asked questions, what was being paid for, that's what we were going off of. And then we've changed that and went off some other, as we've seen some final rulings and everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until we had our meeting afterwards, so we're changing.
So that's what I was trying to remember the public meeting that happened in it, and I couldn't remember it, so that kind of answered that question. Also, my final comment on that one is still, as the finance director for Uintah County, I'm over the budget to be doing these, not Mr. Caldwell. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just taking some notes. Okay, any further comment?
You know, the comments I'd have on it is they're great projects. I want to make sure we're following all the procedures correctly. You know, that's very exciting about that downtown revitalizations. I mean, that Quinn Binion has put hundreds of hours into that. Great projects, Buckskin Hills, the Western Park Ice Ring, and amphitheater. They're just some great projects, and just a comment.
Okay. Seeing no other comments from the commission, I will put it up for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 9/19/2022 R1, the 2022 budget amendment/increase.
Okay. I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next item is the BLM law enforcement contract.
This is the BLM law enforcement contract that we have every year. Oh, sorry, Sheriff Labram. And We've had addendums the last few years that they've sent us, and they decided to revamp the contract. This is a 1-year contract with an option of 4 more years on there. The yearly amount is $16,018.70, and the effective date on the contract is 9/1 of '22. The performance period is 10/1 of '22 to 9/30 of '23, and we just need appropriate signatures. This is for patrol duties to offset some costs,
On the-
wage costs for us, patrol and BLM land.
Okay. John, have you looked at that contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Nope.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion that we go ahead and accept the BLM law enforcement contract for 1 year for $16,018.70 with the dates that were provided by the sheriff at this time
Okay.
and appropriate signatures.
Okay. Have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Steve.
I won't even mouth off about football. Maybe wrestling. I think.
Yeah. Do you know where I'm supposed to sign this?
I believe it's that front second page down on the.
Here. Okay. Next item is a memorandum of understanding for Utah Office of Tourism for the 2022 Co-op Marketing Award in the amount of $161,966.
All right, so we applied for and were awarded $161,966 for co-op marketing for the 2023 calendar year. And it's a variety of promotional stuff from videos to digital, online, banners, and we have been successful at applying for that for the last 10 years now, and so we're just appreciative to the state. They gather a portion of the TRT state tax money from around the state, and then they put $5 million of it back into this fund where the counties can come and apply, and different organizations can come and apply for marketing dollars to match marketing dollars that they already have. So today I'm just here to gather signatures so that we can turn that back, the MOU back into the state, that will accept the money.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the co-op market agreement with the State of Utah Office of Tourism in the amount of $161,966, including authorization of signature.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passed. Thank you. Okay. The next item, the modification min release allocation, I'm going to move it to right above the public comment. The next one would be request to add adoption, what's that, is indemnity? Benefit, no cost plan? Identity.
Good morning, Tanya Craven, Human Resources. So that we will have to table the final paperwork for signatures I haven't received yet from GBS, but this is the benefit that you do have to just request to be added since we are level funded insurance. It just provides that $4,000 benefit to families who are going through the adoption process. So we're going to ask that that be just added to our plan. Once I have that paperwork, I'll bring it back. And then that way John will have opportunity to view that paperwork and make sure that it is all in alignment before I request the signatures. I was hoping to have that in time for this when I requested it be put on there. But I'm excited about that because we've had employees ask about it in the past and we haven't had that opportunity. So I'm excited to be able to have that added to our plan.
Okay. So we'll just table that for now. Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay. Are you on the next one too?
I am.
Discussion and approval of the Appendix A, Revision 10.
Do you want paper copies up there, or do you want to just look at the?
I'm good with the screen.
Okay.
You guys want the paper?
So Commissioner Stringer and I have been working on this. There's been some conversation regarding our department heads and their classifications. There were some positions on here, supervisory positions, that were on this appendix. And speaking with Sheriff Labrum also about, he had a staff member that was listed on the appendix, and we looked into it as to why that position was listed on here and listed on here as an appointed position. And we spoke about it, and he had requested as well that this position be moved to a career service or merit position at this time. A couple of years ago, we also had moved travel and tourism into their own director role, into their own department, but that had never been officially added to the appendix, even though it had been acknowledged as a department. It had traditionally been written into being underneath the economic development director, but with the increase in duties and increase of the role that Leisha has developed that department into, it had been acknowledged as her as a director, but it had never been written into the appendix. So there are multiple things kind of working in tandem here with this. Scrolling down through, there was also the need to make a change and add the purchasing and grants director to the appendix, because that department had been added as well. And so that department was added. And then the budget officer, there were some code changes with the recent legislation. There was, I have the codes. Let me grab my paperwork. If you would like for me to read for you out of code, the reasoning for the code change. I know we reviewed it earlier in chamber, but. So effective 5/4/2022, 1753-212, for a county legislative body may hire professional staff to provide technical assistance and analysis of all financial matters of the county. So 17-9A-203-1 was no longer applicable to budget officer. Oh, but it says 4 needs to be, oh yeah, that's correct. So we added that code under budget officer to correct that. And then the reason why the library director, with discussion with Sam, I'm sorry, I'm kind of scrolling all over. It was noticed as well that the library director under county code was required to be a appointed position. And we found that under code 97507. So that's why that position had not changed or hasn't been recognized as changed yet, because we wanted to have some more conversation on whether we needed to go back in and discuss county code and then make a change in the appendix, or the appendix first and then county code. I wasn't sure the appropriate line of steps for that to be prepared for the meeting today, so made the decision to just put in the code and then move forward at a more appropriate time.
Okay. Is that your presentation?
I can answer any questions you have as to. regarding the changes.
Commissioner Stringer, you've been
Yes.
working on this.
I
Do
know
you have
Commissioner
any-
Stringer has probably quite a bit comment.
This went before the Career Service Board.
Yes.
Which is, I don't know if I need to name the people, but it's
On the
Roxanne
14th. Roxanne,
Hunan from Vernal City, Renee Chamberlain from Public, Rolene Rasmussen in the Public. One of the concerns here has been, and when we talked as the Career Service Board, or as I talked to the Career Service Board, some of these things have been in place for quite a while, and there probably was a very good reason why these were essentially, I guess maybe to make the distinction, exempt versus merit is almost a political versus a career type position. It's been my experience as we've been going through here, in particular, there's one department head that sticks out more than most, but a lot of them have the same kind of issues these days as the county has grown larger and more complex. The community development director takes a lot of abuse from the public over things that are law. They're not even things that person could change. I'm sometimes fear that some of these appointed positions, to Matt's credit, he has never come in and said, "Oh, well, we can break that rule, we can bend that rule if we need to." He's been very good about defending the county. And that's what this is all about. All of these positions are for defending the county, not the elected official over the top of that division. I want people to come in and say, this is right, this is wrong, we will be liable if we do this. And I said, there are folks that are just flat, they don't like the rules, and in some cases, we can't even change those rules. But the department head shouldn't be fretting over, well, gosh, I don't know how I'm going to help them. Am I going to get in trouble? It doesn't affect the ability of a supervisor to deal with a poor performing department head. There's still the same standards, which are you tell somebody what they need to do, you make sure it's in conformance with county policy and law. And if they don't do that, then they certainly can be disciplined or removed. So that's where this started, and just started down the list, and frankly, not married to every last one of them, but a lot of these are doing the business of the county. They're out front. I just assume that they be people who feel they can do their job without interference. So that's where this came from. The Career Service Board was unanimous in supporting this change. We did find out that we had to be careful with the library director because that came with state law. Another one of those that, once again, we're very fortunate to have the director for the library that we have. Does a great job, and I still feel that Sam does what he needs to do, and if he has to tell the powers that be that can't be done or can't be done that way, I'm pretty sure he's confident that he can do that. But he's built that reputation. So anyway, that's what this was about, it's been on the radar for a while, but recently there's just been more, again, unwarranted complaints, and in some cases the staff gets to tell some of these people that they're out of line, and staff doesn't have to deal with people who are being abusive or who are being otherwise ignorant. So we just thought it might be well to extend that to the division chair, to the department head as well. We took some of them off because they really weren't department heads. I'm looking for
That would be your commander.
economic development director is not a department head. They're person who works, don't have really staff. So anyway, this was our proposal to bring to the commission to look at. There's no real public comment associated with this, but there's, as I said, after having looked at it, it certainly seemed like a reasonable approach moving forward. This is just not the same county it was 15, 20 years ago. So anyway, that's what those are for.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Horrocks? John?
Individually, I've talked to you and I've talked to Tanya about this. Is the commission able to do this? Yes, they are. It does need to be noted that it is a massive policy shift from what has happened in the past. There has been maybe one or two positions that are addressed here or there throughout the years, or viewed more as like what Commissioner Stringer was saying, where they're implementing just law. They're not implementing policy of the county or the direction of a new administration. So just noting that, but is the commission lawfully able to take this action? The answer is yes. I have personal reservations about the breadth of this action, but that's not my call.
Okay. Commissioner Horrocks? No.
There will be at the end. Just for the record, also, the Career Service Board meeting was on September 14th.
Okay.
Well, I could go down through here and I could look at people, and this would be my personal bias as I look at some of these, and I don't know how that's looked at, how somebody else might look at it. Any of these positions, community development, economic development director could be, I can see where that could remain exempt because it is more of it's less of an implementing policy or law. Facilities manager, that's a person who's, once again, they're dealing with a lot of things that certainly, if a commissioner or the commission says we need to do this, I think of our facilities manager is Jess, and he buys the chemicals. He manages the people that clean the buildings. A lot of OSHA regulations. There are a lot of things that we don't see from what we do, and we want them doing the best job to protect the county. I don't want them buying hydrofluoric acid for cleaning floors. I don't want them to do the best thing to keep us out of trouble. So general manager, I'm not sure which one that is. Is that just a
That's your
position?
conference center.
Just a position, conference center.
Mhm.
HR director, and maybe that's why, I know I questioned this before, but that's one of those that, again, is intended to keep you out of trouble. And once again, if these folks can't take direction, then they can certainly be removed. IT, that is not something that you really want to see. You don't want your IT people being whipsawed around. There are policies, there are things in place, especially security. They can't feel like they can be badgered into allowing access to a system that affects the whole county as well as the people in the county. So that's kind of where that is at. I'm not really, as I mentioned this to the commission, I'm not married to every last one of these, but I do think we need to pay more attention to some of these positions and realize that we're hiring professionals, not politicians.
Okay. Well, I'll put it up for a motion. I have a
I'd like to see
motion.
us, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see us take another hard look at this here in the next little bit, and I've got some thoughts. I'd like to take a little harder look at this before we took a vote on this, if that's all right.
Okay. Is that a motion, or do we need a motion on that?
Just a motion to table, I guess.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Motion failed, or passed, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, next three are policies, Rick, and two of them are in one, correct? Information security policy and software infrastructure policy.
We have for policy, we'll reduce two of them into one. Rick May, Uintah County IT Director. We're going to be talking about some policies for the IT. Sorry about that. So one of the things I've, if I can get this to come up.
Better call an IT guy.
Need an IT guy here. Is that turned on over there? It is. Try this again. Got a positive sound there. Maybe. Which plugin are you using? The VGA. Did you, okay. Not each.
While he's doing that, I might as well just lay some of the foundation. We have been identified by audits going back a couple of years that we are missing some policy or some key policies. We've also noted, just in some of our on-site experiences, our data breaches and other things that we actually did about 2 years ago. We started some basic policies, but we were woefully behind. So these address a lot of the comments that came from the auditors, both the independent and the state auditor, as well as this is getting closer to what would be an industry standard. This is the way the rest of the world is doing it. I may not be your full appreciation of how much and what kind of data the county has, what it is the custodian of. And that's for every last one of you who are taxpayers or property owners in this county. We have a lot of information about you, and keeping it safe should be one of our highest priorities. And this is a step in that direction.
Okay, so the two
Another
policies I have, sorry, were you?
No, just
Okay. The two policies we're going to be addressing today are the information security and also data management policy. The information security policy mainly deals with what kind of devices are allowed on our secured networks, what authorization they have to have, who maintains it, who supports it. And part of the problem we've run into is that some departments simply want a piece of equipment, and IT doesn't necessarily have the expertise to support that kind of thing. It's going to require a little bit more of making sure that IT is good with equipment that the individual departments purchase, to make sure that we have a system that works well with the devices that get put onto it. Is there any questions? I've emailed out
Just,
this.
yeah,
policy.
just to be more, I guess, get into it a little deeper. Just about every IT security organization will tell you, people are the biggest security risk. It's not the equipment itself, it's the people that use it. Human error leads to most of the breaches. One of the things that we have seen is that people are buying software or they're buying appliances that operate or get into our system and IT doesn't know anything about them. We've discovered them by accident. Even the simplest thing of taking a thumb drive home, working on your computer network at home, which may or may not be secure, and because it's secure when it left here, because you're working on it. You use it at home. If your kid's been playing on that computer, who knows what it's got. It depends on your security. And then you bring it back and plug it back in. You worked on it at home, you plug it back in, and it brought something with it. So what we're trying to do is just make it a little bit more clear about not trying to keep people from doing their job, but keep them from, as they do that job, exposing us to risk. And so that's what this one is about. And just because there's a group that wants to use an inventory software, wants to use a tracking software, doesn't mean that they can't get a tracking software, but they should talk to the people who maintain the system to see, maybe get a better idea about what system works. What do we already have? Does somebody already have one in the county that you could make use of? So those are the reasons for getting IT involved, and then also just raising the profile of our security to the employees.
In addition, part of the security or part of the policy is also sections that are directly related to IT itself. We do things like maintain databases. We need to have policies in place that if for some reason we have a rogue employee that changes data or something along that lines, that we have policy in place and actions we can take because we have policy in place. Other things it covers things like disaster recovery, how we back up our software, how we back up our databases. And then there's a little bit of a section on limitation of personal use of, as far as, taking a break and going on web pages or something like that, what is and isn't allowed. And then, if they find something that's suspicious or inappropriate content, the actions the employee should have to take so that that's handled appropriately. Unsupported and out-of-date software. This was the one that the third item on the agenda I've incorporated into this first policy, the information security policy, and that has to do with making sure that the equipment we're using is up to date and that it has proper security, and that we're not expecting something to work past its end of life where the manufacturer no longer even supports it. And then some actions that we have for enforcement. Any questions, commissioners? As far as information security goes, we'll go into the data management policy next.
So this one is the information security
Correct.
policy and the software infrastructure policy.
Right, we
in
have
one.
this as policy 800. All the 800 policies are gonna be IT related. We're just starting into this, so this is 800. 810 will be data management. We'll probably have another 4 or 5 policies coming up in the next, over the next month or two. Things like segregation of duties and use of personal electronic devices on the network and that kind of information.
Okay. Wendy?
Is this my okay. I just have a comment or question, whatever. And I was a little bit confused when I saw this on the agenda and then realized that this is an IT information security policy. So Commissioners, you may have seen other correspondence. I know John has, and I've worked with Tanya regarding information security policy for protecting credit card information. And I just wanted to make sure that we're not confusing one with the other. I think going forward, maybe I should get with Tanya and John and title that one a little differently so that we don't misunderstand which information security policy we're referring to. We still have not got the credit card information security policy into place. So there's not a problem. I don't have a problem with this. I just wanted to make sure that you were clear on the fact that it's not one and the same, and we should maybe retitle.
Who's
the one for
working
the
on
credit
the
cards.
credit card one?
Pardon me?
Are you putting together the credit card
Yes,
one?
I have put that together and submitted that to Tanya, and I believe John has reviewed it as well.
Yeah, I think it's been sent to the commissioners for their individual review. So if there's any, I think is that where we're at, Tanya? Yeah, so I think a title change would be completely appropriate, because, yeah, we have our global policy here, but we do have that financial information that the treasurer is specifically concerned about and is requesting a specific policy on that.
And
Well, I
that'd
just
probably be
didn't
more
wanna
appropriate under
confuse one
810,
with the
which is
other.
our protected records policy.
Yes, we have to have, there are systems that are managed by elected officials or other departments. And some of those should be highly secure. And so we have developed a policy specifically to address not yours, but yours is similar. Yours is going to be similar. It's very important. It needs to be secure. It's like our closed session stuff. We've worked on a way of getting that to where there's just no way of getting to that information. Once it's recorded and entered into the system, there's only two ways to get it, and one of them is there's only one person with a secret box that if they get run over by a car, then somebody else can get to the box and get to that. It's not going to be open to like it has been.
The information security policy that I submitted was specifically for
credit cards.
protecting credit card holders' information, credit card numbers and so forth, securing that information. So I just wanted to clarify that.
What's the name of that policy then?
Well, right now, it was called the information security policy, so that's why I was a little confused going into this, and I assumed it was gonna be about this credit card one, so I think we should go back to the drawing board and retitle this one so that they don't get confused. Thank you.
And that may actually fall in better as revision 2 for this next policy, which we're gonna look at, which is policy 810, which is protected records policy.
Sheriff Labrum, is there exemptions in there for my guys? I mean, nature of the business, we have to go to the sewer sometimes, and so are they gonna be in a bind by this policy for doing their job?
No, that's part of your job.
Okay.
Of course, we'd make exemptions where, to enable you to do your job. The main differentiation is that these policies are primarily for secured networks. So we also have some public access networks. For example, the library has an open network. If you're on Wi-Fi in here, that's also an open network. These policies don't apply because it's not considered a secured network. It's more of an open type network. The secured network is what we're doing our county business across, rather than providing internet for users in the building. And if they're trying to go out into the sewers of the world, that's probably more the network we want them to go across rather than our secured network. Okay, the next policy is a protected records policy. I don't know if you guys wanted to vote on the previous one or consider it for a future vote, or what we want to do with that.
No, I'd like to. I just wondering about addressing the name change. Is that?
We're not gonna, the IT security is a broad brush. Wendy's is specific, just like it's going to, it's going to zero in on, there may be several underneath this that fall under this umbrella that have very specific boxes to work in.
Okay, just for the record, Wendy, their treasurer said that you would change the credit card one?
Yeah, we can change the title.
The title? Okay.
So the next section is dealing with protected records. These are records that are not necessarily available to the public. In the recorder's office, they record things such as military DD-214s, other information that may have social security numbers, that kind of information. Another part of the protected records that we keep are things like minutes for closed sessions that nobody should be able to get to without following a lot of steps to make sure that they are authorized and that they have they should be able to view these records. Now, the other thing is these policies are kind of a 10,000-foot broad policy. Internally, we'll have other policies that are not necessarily public because they deal with what kind of software we're going to be using, retention policies, the kind of stuff that you really don't want to have public when you're dealing with security of protected records and that kind of stuff. So this policy, it basically goes through, what's considered a controlled record, what's not public. This is part of GRAMA, but this is the county's policy as to how we handle these internally, as opposed to the broad brush of the GRAMA policy that the state has. Any questions, commissioners, about this? This covers things like, what's considered not public record, when's it created, storage and distribution, how we control, how we make sure that these records are not accessed by the public in general, because of the issues it creates.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? John, you good?
John, you have reviewed these, have you not?
Yes, we've taken a look at it, and there's been some changes based off of our discussion, and I think it's good. Of course, state law always controls, so as we implement this, if we see later on that maybe there's some contradictions between state law and our own policy, obviously we'll go through that, and there may be revisions in the future, but I think this is a good place to start.
Okay.
Okay. Those are the two policies I have today, policy 800 and policy 810.
800 and 810?
Correct.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the implementation of policy number 800. Let's see, information security policy, which is also incorporates the software and infrastructure policy.
Correct.
As well as 810, which is the data management policy.
Protected records policy.
Protected records. Why don't I have that here? Okay.
Have that at the
Protected
top.
records policy.
It's listed on the agenda as data management policy, but then being
Okay.
presented today as but the subject matter is the same, so
Okay.
we can change that out.
All right. So move to approve the implementation of both of those policies, including the authorization of signature.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Rich. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is cooperative agreement providing, well, where am I at?
For consolidated dispatch service in Uintah Basin.
Yes,
Duchesne.
sorry about that. Consolidated dispatch service in Uintah Basin for Duchesne County, Daggett County. Now, On this agreement, John, I don't know if it matters, this has Vernal City, Naples City, everybody else, does it matter where it's not listed? Okay. Okay, who's presenting that? Anybody here presenting the? I just know it's an agreement. I have it in front of me. Do you want, should we deal with it, or?
I'm pulling mine up real quick.
What, just get a volunteer from the audience.
Yeah.
So it came, sorry, let me get my, it's showing that it came from the sheriff's office. Do you know who sent that over, Sheriff? Probably Marielle. On Marielle. Okay,
You
it's
wanna
a pretty
present this?
standard agreement. We can probably address it. Because it was sent over to, I'll just back this up. It was sent over to my office for review last week. My office taking a look at it. It's this program or system in place that we have for consolidated dispatch for the law enforcement entities listed in the agreement. We can go over that again if we need to. It's Daggett County, Duchesne County, Uintah County, Naples City, Roosevelt City, Vernal City, Utah Department of Corrections, APMP, Indian Tribe, Uintah Animal Control, Special and Shelter Special Service District, Uintah Fire Suppression Special Service District, and Gold Cross Services, and the Utah Department of Public Safety. Those are the participating entities. And it's all housed over in the public safety complex.
We do these yearly, don't we? Isn't this done yearly?
Yes, it's requested that it be, I wouldn't say it is yearly. Sometimes there's changes midterm that come in from dispatch or the state that they want changes. My understanding, this is just our normal renewal, if my understanding is correct.
Is that right?
That's what it looks like to me.
I remember attending those meetings in the past. One of the things that IT and I had talked about was looking at that. I think Uintah County pays, do we host that or we maintain that?
We both maintain and we pay for the majority of it.
So we pay for the majority of that even though we're a minority user for all intents and purposes. And at that last meeting, I don't think we did not have a presentation ready to say we were looking at some of the other participating entities, throwing a little bit more into the pot. But
We are the largest user. I mean, if you count everybody else, then we're not the largest user
But we're the
combined.
largest single.
We're the longest,
Single
but we
entity,
pay for half even though
yeah.
and maintain, even though we're the largest, but with all those people added in, they're kind of like NATO.
And I know, Mr. Chair, I know the question always comes up on the amount. I don't have the exact dollar amount on this. I can just read the term because it's based off of a per call percentage. It's in the appendix to the agreement. The agencies that I just listed, they have a base price of $2,000 per year. And then in addition to the base price, they're charged an amount based on a percentage of their cost per call as approved by the board. And then in the agreement, it talks about who makes up the board and who has voting authority and which entities are there for advisory.
Okay. This is the same agreement we had previous years.
Looks like it to me.
And the same to me when I reviewed it. It's
Okay.
Yep.
Based on that, I'll put it up for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion that we approve the cooperative agreement providing for consolidated dispatch services in the Uintah Basin, Duchesne County, and Daggett County.
Okay. Have a motion.
With appropriate signatures.
With appropriate signatures.
We have a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thanks, Steve, or Sheriff. Okay, we have a need for an MBA meeting today, so we will recess the commission meeting.
You need a motion.
I need a motion to do that? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Entertain a
we
motion.
Recess into the MBA.
Okay.
Second, well,
Doesn't have to be voted on, does it?
well, it does. We're going in to talk about the conference center building transfer agreement. When we're finished, we'll come out and return to the,
Okay, you want to rephrase your motion?
Yeah, that's what, make a motion that we go into the MBA and with discussion, and when we are done, that we will come back out. It will be on the conference center's building transfer agreement. Then we will come back out into regular, adjourn and come back out into regular commission meeting.
Okay. Have a
Second.
motion. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. So we are in the MBA. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, boss. You're the chair.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah. Okay,
We haven't done one of these in a while, so that's
well,
fine.
I do, okay, yeah, we've had an agreement with the conference center, that paid, if I might be, quote me on this, $150,000 a year towards the conference center. We've had an agreement with the Impact Mitigation Board that they paid into the conference center building a transfer of $150,000, and as we're, looking at the dissolving the Impact Mitigation Board, we need to discuss the, and transfer of that agreement.
Okay. Commissioner Stringer, you've been involved with the District 1?
I have, but John was actually been doing some of the paperwork on here. But what it amounts to is as we progressed towards consolidating impact mitigation with Special Service District 1, we had to be sure that all of the obligations that were with impact mitigation were taken care of. For example, loans that were outstanding were paid off. Agreements with USU, UB Tech were taken over and agreed to by impact mitigation or by District Number 1, that they would pick up and honor those. There would be no change, it's just a transfer. This is the same thing. It will be transferred, the obligation will be met. It's just that it's going from, as the authority, as the municipal building authority, we need to approve that because it really is our loan. So what we're doing here is saying we have no concerns moving that over to Special Service District 1, who will then pick up where Impact left off and make the annual payments. So that's what the MBA needs to consider and vote on whether to do that or not. And then if that's the case, then we would finish our business in here, return to commission and finalize whatever needs to be finalized.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, can I make a few comments? Okay, so going off of what Commissioner Stringer said, that is the intent. Let me just go on the simple transfer agreement. It's 2 pages with an attachment A, which is the original agreement. So it mentions that on February 3rd, 2014, the county and Uintah Impact Mitigation Special Service District entered into an agreement to address funding and use of the conference center. The Municipal Building Authority of Uintah County, as the owner of the conference center, leased said building to the county and signed an acknowledgement on the February 3rd, 2014 agreement. Then the county and the building authority desire to have SSD number 1 assume the February 3rd, 2014 agreement as currently enacted. And then from about a month ago, SSD number 1 in their board meeting approved that they would take over that responsibility. So then it goes into the actual agreement. Now therefore Uintah County and Special Service District Number 1 hereby agree and covenant as follows. Now remember, it's just those two because the Municipal Building Authority for today's meeting is just an acknowledgement of that arrangement. The MBA is just concerned about where the money's going to come, so payments can be made. So they agree as follows. Assumption of the February 3rd, 2014 agreement. SSD number 1 agrees to assume the obligations of the Uintah Impact Mitigation Special Service District contained within the February 3rd, 2014 agreement attached hereto and incorporated herein as attachment A. County and Building Authority agreed to the same. Replacement of entity anywhere the term related to, I have UIM SSD, the Impact Mitigation SSD, is referenced in February 3rd, 2014 agreement. It shall now be referred to SSD number 1. And then section 3, all other terms remain unchanged and in full effect. And then just a reminder of the agreement, there is that funding portion of $150,000 payment per year. In consideration for that, the district does get 15 days to be able to schedule in the conference center for certain community events, education events, things of that nature. And then there are provisions if they need more than 15 days, they can work with the county to get additional days. So what I'm seeking is an acknowledgement approval for this agreement.
It's already been taken care of in the SSD number 1s in the
Yep.
previous meeting.
If you want to call for a motion.
Waiting for you.
Oh.
You're the chair.
At this time, I would call for a motion.
You haven't made a motion in a long
Go
time.
ahead.
Let's do one.
You know what you're doing, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the transfer of the agreement for the Uintah Conference Center building as described by John from the Impact Mitigation Board to the Special Service District Number 1. And I don't know, does it need a signature to do that?
There is a place for an acknowledgement from the Municipal Building Authority.
Including authorization of signature.
I'll second that.
All righty, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed, and we are now going to adjourn of the MBA and reconvene in commission meeting.
Okay. So we need to vote on that as a commission, so I would entertain.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
just make a note on that? Last week, as Corinne and I were working on this, I'll keep the fingers just pointed at me. I may not have explained what needed to be on the agenda in a clear enough manner. We were looking for the agreement to see if it was an MBA agreement solely or if it was a county agreement, and then the last thing I said was, oh, the MBA acknowledged this agreement, so we need to have that on the agenda. It wasn't placed as a separate agenda item for the county because of that misunderstanding, but where it is on the agenda, if it wasn't listed on the agenda at all, that public body was going to be discussing this, I would advise that we postpone this for a week, but where we do have it as an action item, the public sees that this agreement is under consideration. I think we're okay treating it as a staff error and move forward as an action item for the county commission.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
And this would be
From
a
the
motion
county
for
commission.
actual approval of
Okay.
of the agreement.
Me again?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the transfer agreement as related by John Sturmer and as approved by the MBA, including authorization of signature.
Second it.
Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 09192022R2, resolution to dissolve the UN Impact Mitigation Special Service District. John or Bill, do you?
Yeah, let me get my mic back on. So I can talk about this, and then it would be up for the commission for deliberation and an action. So commissioners, as you're aware, the county took action to create Special Service District Number 1, and in that creation, also announced then the dissolution of the three districts of transportation, rec, and impact mitigation. There are things in state statute that require that financial obligations or services be taken care of, that those can't be outstanding before a dissolution of a district can take place. And so with the formation of SSD number 1, they have moved forward with hiring a director and taking the necessary steps to assume the contracts that Uintah Impact Mitigation Special Service District have with our post-high school education facilities, UBTech and USU. And then also a research contract with USU, and then the agreement that we had just dealt with the conference center. All of those have been addressed and by board action, SSD number 1 board action of last month, taken on that responsibility. And I've also been in communication with UBTech and USU, and they are in agreement to having the entity switch over to SSD number 1. So with that, there is, by state statute, when you dissolve a special service district, there needs to be a adopted resolution. And so that's what's before the county commission today. The whereas clauses are essentially what I just told you, so I'll just read the body of the resolution. Uintah County Board of Commissioners hereby dissolves Uintah Impact Mitigation Special Service District effective October 1st, 2022. That is just a date thrown out by me if the commission wants to change that date, but the idea there is that this would give Uintah Impact Mitigation and SSD number 1 time to switch over bank accounts, transfer funds, close out bank accounts, final payroll, or any of those other administrative responsibilities. Then on section 2, all funds, monies, and assets, tangible or intangible, hereafter property, shall be transferred from Uintah Impact Mitigation Special Service District to Special Service District number 1. Procedurally, in the event the two districts are unable to effectuate the transfer by October 1st, 2022, this resolution authorizes and requires said property to be automatically transferred to and become the property of Special Service District number 1. And then 3, Uintah County will file the proper notice and document with the Office of Lieutenant Governor for the state of Utah and any other required offices as set forth in Utah Code. Just to provide an explanation there, once this resolution is passed, it is sent to the Lieutenant Governor's office with also, it's an awkward name, but it's what the statute says. It's a notice of impending boundary change, which sounds weird in this situation, but it's the same statute that did if you're dealing with a modification of the boundaries or the dissolution of a district. So it's the same notice, but obviously this isn't really a boundary change, it's a dissolution. So we have to send that, and then also it needs to be sent to the county recorder's office to be recorded. So that's why I just put as set forth in Utah Code. And then it has adopted by the Board of County Commissioners this 9th day of September 2022 with the chair's signature, and then attestation and signatures of the commissioners.
Okay. Any conversation?
The only issue with this is the date. That is not clear. This is one of those things that it's hard to, things have to happen, but they're not as predictable as you might like. This week, I believe, it's as early as this week, the State Treasurer's Office Financial Services will send the allocation out. They may have already done the calculations. They may already have it in the pipeline. And so we definitely need to spend some time keeping that district open until that money is received and then until that district can get with Special Service District 1 to go together down to the financial institutions and close and move the assets of the Impact Mitigation Special Service District. I would like to think we can do that by the 1st, that is a Saturday. But I want to be able, if we can phrase this where we can have leeway if we need it. Is that doable?
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing, Commissioner. That's, you know, I put 2 weeks in there just to put 2 weeks. That's the other reason why I drafted Section 2, which was the catch-all, that if that, for whatever reason, is unable to take place in that time,
Okay.
it is being dissolved, and this is a direction of where those assets are supposed to go. So if the paperwork, for whatever reason, at the financial institution or otherwise, can't meet that date, then the question would be, well, where are we supposed to put it? And that's why I put the catch-all Section 2 in here. But the October 1, admittedly, is just the date I put on the document. If you feel like maybe there needs to be a little bit more time, there's no other reason I put that on there except I needed to put a calendar date on.
Well, it is important for the director of impact mitigation to know that date certain, because I believe they're planning on retiring through URS, and you've got to give them a date. And so we need to give something, and without putting them in a bind or without asking them to do, we need to be able to complete all the transactions and not stop simply because we reached that the day that we put in here. So I would probably, just to be on the safe side, I would probably move it one more week till October the 7th, perhaps. I can't imagine why we wouldn't be through by then. So is that something we write into that? Can we modify the ordinance with that date?
We can, and I could just have Karina print out a clean copy.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the resolution number 9/19/2022 R2, resolution to dissolve the UN Impact Mitigation Special Service District with the change of date from October 1st to October 7th, including authorization of signature.
I'll second it.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay, now we'll bring down
Modification.
the modification of min release allocations.
Okay.
What's-
Mr. Chairman, this is, the commission makes the recommendations to it's presented in this body at the first of the year to allocate the federal lease money, best guess, we don't know how much money's coming in, to the 6 districts. We did that earlier, or almost, I think we did it before the beginning of the year. Maybe we did it in January of this year. We had one change simply because inflation had wiped out the health district. We also needed to put a little extra money into impact mitigation when they hired their director. So what we do is, in this body, I need to make a recommendation to contact or get approval to contact the Division of Financial Services and inform them that this last transfer, or this transfer for this month, would be the last one into this PTIF. And that any money would then be, that had been going allocated for this district, would be moved over to Special Service District number 1. So the exact numbers I did not bring with me for what impact mitigation is getting now. but it would just be that amount transferred after this final allotment.
Okay.
So with that background, if you have any questions of me, otherwise I'll go ahead and make a motion.
I don't have any questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve a reallocation of the federal mineral lease money to account for the dissolution of the Impact Mitigation Special Service District. We will prepare that for the chairman's transmission to the state, including authorization of signature.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay, time is at 12:52. We do have a need for a closed session. We have to be in the small conference room at 1 o'clock. So with your public comments, we have approximately 5 minutes today. Or we can come back after our closed session if we need to. So with that, I'll open it up to public comment, if you would keep that in mind.
Commissioners, I'll try to be brief. There are a couple of facts that I would like to bring out regarding the cash defeasance of the GO bond. I've had a lot of people ask me, several people ask me, what will happen to the escrow account's interest that is earned on the interest from the escrow account? It was brought out in one of the meetings and also an individual was told by someone that that interest would come back to the county, and that is not true. The interest on that escrow account will go back in to pay off the bond when they become callable. So I wanted to clear that fact up. I'd also like to clear up another fact that was stated in a previous meeting, that paying off the bond would make our bond rating, could make our bond rating go up. I have found in the Moody's bond rating agency in their report to us that is on the contrary. According to Moody's investment report, that will make our bond rating go down because there will be a major decline in our reserves. So that will make our bond rating go down. I wanted to clear up those two facts. While we're talking about facts and feelings, I'd like to just address a couple of things from last week's meeting regarding Commissioner Haslam's comments on facts versus feelings. I don't think anyone is disputing the facts. We've heard the facts. I have presented several times numbers, figures, interest amounts, payoff amounts. Those are all facts. You've mentioned several facts, Commissioner Haslam, also. Based on those facts, we have both formed different opinions. It is your opinion that it would be better to pay off the bonds, and it is in my opinion that it would be better, based on all the same facts, that it would be better to keep that money in our cash reserves. Allow me quickly to just kind of demonstrate a little analogy. I woke up the other morning and it was raining outside. I knew that because there were droplets of water falling from the sky and the pavement was wet. That's a fact. I also looked at my thermometer and it said it was 50 degrees outside. That is a fact. Now, based on those two facts, I formed an opinion. I decided I'm going to wear a sweater and I'm going to take an umbrella to work. My husband is a farmer. Okay, he loves the rain, and he's always hot. So he went out and danced in the rain in a t-shirt. Same facts, it was raining, and it was 50 degrees outside. But we both formed different opinions based on those facts. The difference in these analogies, commissioners, is that it doesn't matter if I wear a sweater or take my umbrella regarding our GO bond, because you're the one that makes that decision. You're the legislative body and you're the one that makes that decision. So that's one difference. The other difference is it's not going to affect anybody else whether I wear a sweater or not, whether I think it's best to not pay off the bond or not. But your decision regarding paying off that GO bond will affect the county for many, many years to come. So that was just something that I wanted to bring up from last week's meeting. I did not have a chance to prepare that. I didn't know what that presentation was going to be on. He also, Commissioner Haslam also stated in previous meetings that you've talked to financial advisors that are much smarter than Zion's Bank. And I was wondering who these so-called financial advisors are. Would they be able to facilitate the paying off of these bonds? And if so, why have I not been notified as the investment officer for the county that you have talked to other financial advisors? So that was just a question also that I had for you. As mentioned earlier, my husband's a farmer. We have a farm loan.
Time, Wendy, if we're gonna
Okay,
give everybody else a chance.
that's great. I made my point. Thank you.
It's actually 12:57. I gotta close the public comments. We do have people, professionals here to meet with us today at 1 o'clock. I stated that at the beginning of the meeting. So with that, entertain a motion for the closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we go into the closed session for the purpose of discussing pending or imminent litigation.
And upon completion.
On completion.
Upon completion to reconvene into a regular scheduled commission meeting and adjourn. Is that correct?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, if I might, do we have 10 minutes before we can, maybe John, the folks that are coming, do we have 10 minutes from now to get down there and?
No, it's 12:50.
Yeah, I received a text that they're here, but I'm
Okay.
sure some of
Well,
us,
we'll go.
including me, may need to use some facilities before we start the next meeting.
Okay.